Do you ever want to dive deeper into the Bible, but you just don't know where to begin or struggle to feel like you have the time? When you read the Bible, do you get frustrated because you know there is so much more in there, you just have no clue how to get it out? Or maybe you want to know the Bible better, so you're looking for any resource to help. Well, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Context and Color of the Bible podcast. We are two sisters. I'm Erica.
I'm Veronica.
We love to study the Bible and help others understand it better. We have found that when it comes to our own study of Scripture, that in bringing back the context of Scripture, it adds to the understanding. It actually adds color to the black and white pages of the text. Veronica, this is episode 136.
Good job.
Thank you. I see my notes.
Yep.
Right there. And it is May.
That's crazy.
That is. Right now it's raining.
And cold.
And cold, but April showers bring May
Oh,
flowers.
there you go.
So I am excited for May.
Yes. And tulips and,
And
daffodils
tulips and yes.
whatever
Before
flowers are
they
left.
I know. I texted my sister, look, they left us tulips from last year. The bunnies didn't eat every single thing. And she's like, they didn't leave them for you. I'm like, no, they
Left
didn't.
them to come back this
Yeah.
year.
They were planning for the future.
Yes.
But so you said, we're how long have you been married, Veronica?
It will be 25 years in August.
25?
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my word, you sound
Old. I know.
But you have a child graduating from high school.
Yes, I do. So 25 is.
Not that old when you think about it,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
So
But-
you went 7 years before you had kids.
We did. But we got married. I was 19 when I got married.
I know, young.
I know.
So young.
I know. We were in college. I married my junior high sweetheart.
And I have told my kids that's not normal.
Yes, I have told my daughter because she goes, Mom, that's so young.
Yes.
I'm like, I know, but realize how long I knew your dad.
Right, you were together for quite a
We
while.
needed to get, and yes,
You needed to get married.
it was time.
Yes.
You know, we had been together long enough. It was like, okay. Mom and Dad
Right.
actually sat Brian down and said, look, 3 things are going to happen. Either you're going to have sex, or you're going to break up because you really want to have sex, or you're going to get married because you want to have sex.
So pick which one you like,
Yes.
buddy.
Brian actually didn't like any of those options.
Did he feel too young?
Yeah, because we were in college and I was going to college, he was going to college, and Dad
Right.
told him clearly, you marry my daughter, you're paying for her college education.
Right.
Brian
Which-
went, yeah, forget that. Taylor's pretty expensive. So,
What changed his mind?
God,
Oh.
he was bow hunting
No
and
way.
really felt like God said, no, it's time. Go talk to her parents. So he got down out of the tree early from bow hunting, which is huge, and went over and talked to Mom and Dad and got their blessing. And
Is that when he ate the whole pie?
yeah, that's when he ate the whole apple
You
pie.
and Dad and my brother-in-law ate a whole apple pie between the two of them discussing
Talking about,
marriage.
yes, how are you going to pay for this? And Brian's like, I don't know.
But God took care of
But
it
God
all.
took care of it all. Yeah. So what about you? How long have you been married?
I know you. Okay, we got married in 05.
Kylie's 18.
So
She was
18 years
6
and-
months at your wedding.
Well, because my first thought was it's been 17 years, but it'll be 16 in June.
Really? 16?
17.
Keep going,
Jeez,
Eric.
18. Oh, my word. And it's July.
Yes.
No, June.
You're married. Okay.
Oh, my word.
Erica, you got married in June, and it will be 18 years.
Yeah.
So.
18 years in June. I don't know why I said
And how long
July.
did you know Brian before you met him? Married him?
Yeah. Not very long. We,
You were older, though.
I was older. I
You're
was 24. I was really old when we got married. I'd known him for a little over a year.
Okay.
And I remember still waking up one morning going, what have I done? There is a man I barely know in bed next to me. What in the world?
But how did you two get together?
Israel
And?
and our mothers. Yes, it is true. Our mothers somewhat. And Terry Lehman.
Oh,
He
Terry
likes to
Lehman
take
gets
credit. Yes,
credit
because
for
for
that one?
years he would tell Brian, like, I know this girl. Or at least he mentioned it once. And he would tell me, I know this boy.
Funny.
I remember being at his house once with Carol. And he was like, so I know this guy. I'm like, whatever,
Okay.
Terry.
All right. So,
So-
Mom and Laurel and Terry
Yeah, set us up.
and God.
And God.
Yes.
And it took off.
Yeah, it did.
because I wasn't going to get
Although,
married.
when he first met you, what was his first thought?
His first thought, oh, darn. He came to the door because we were supposed to go out to talk about Israel because I was heading that way. And I answered the door, and his first thought was, she sent her cute little sister to meet me. And then he was pleasantly surprised that I was the one he was supposed to meet.
Right.
And
You didn't have those thoughts
no,
right away.
at the end of our first date, I told my parents, like, nice guy. I don't ever have to see him again. I wasn't. It was on the second date.
It was
but
not love at first
It
sight?
wasn't. But you know what? He did his hair on the second date.
He didn't do his hair on the
No,
first one?
because he was like, whatever. We're just.
Right. We're just talking about Israel.
Right. We're just talking about Israel. I don't think he really thought it would go anywhere. It was the second, when he saw me, then he's like, oh, she's cute. And so the second date, he did his hair. And so the second date, and I said yes, because he called and asked, and I thought, you know what, I had fun. Sure, you want to go bowling? I'll go bowling with you. So it was on the second date, he did his hair, and I was also like, oh, he's cute. And he's tall.
And he had earrings?
No, he didn't have earrings.
We didn't have earrings?
He got them later for me.
Oh,
Yeah,
funny.
he got earrings for me because and they look so good on him.
And then he got rid of the earrings because he had a child.
After we got married, he got rid of the earrings. But that's another story. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
just some fun little insight as we get into...
A wedding.
Yes.
Because I kind of threw that at you. Sorry, it was an awkward.
No, it works because what we're trying to do is kind of set the stage for what we're going to get into today in Genesis.
Guess which chapter we're talking about in Genesis. You may not. I don't know if I would have.
Probably not. But we're actually going to cover Genesis 23, 24, and 25, 1 through 18 today. We last week ended with like basically the culmination of Abraham's life.
Right. The binding of Isaac.
Right.
And
the almost sacrificing his son.
Right.
And he was willing to do it.
Obedience.
Right.
Amazing.
As we followed Abraham's faith, and now we are getting to the end of Abraham's life. But the first thing that sadly needs to happen is chapter 23 is Sarah dies.
My daughter asked, why do the women always die first?
Oh.
She said, Mom, they always are gone first. Like we were just reading through a missionary story, and both wives died before the husband.
All the missionary stories, the wives died.
They all, the children and everybody.
Any Sunlight book,
Yes.
people die.
A lot of people die.
But Sarah was 127 when she died. And you think when we first met her in Genesis 12, she was 65. So this is 62 years.
We've been with a lot. We've been through a lot with them.
Yes.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. And Dennis Prager says 127 is a combination of 120 years, which God allotted in Genesis 6, verse 3. And then she gets the sacred number 7
On
to
top.
show she's a special person.
I like that because I feel like we tend to overlook.
I do too. Because let's be honest, Sarah was sitting there through all of this.
Right. Waiting.
How many years, how many months went by waiting for that child?
Right.
But so Sarah dies, and Abraham wants to do the natural thing. He needs to bury his wife.
It's always a good thing to do.
It's helpful.
Helpful, yeah.
All of chapter 23 is basically about this, but because it's also the first acquisition of land. Last week we had Abraham getting a well.
Right.
This week he's actually getting a piece of land.
So I guess I didn't even think about it, but I guess with the well I had assumed, but probably not. Like just maybe access to the well is what he had.
I guess. Or
but
maybe
yeah, because this is the first time you read of him actually buying land.
Which is important because God did promise Abraham the land would go to him and his descendants forever.
Right.
So the first piece of land they actually get
is a big deal.
Kind of like I know business owners, at least back in the day, would save that first dollar.
Oh, right. Yes.
You know, that first piece of, okay, here the rest is going to come.
Right.
That first piece has
significance.
Mm-hmm. And so what's interesting is, so we get a very recorded detail of Abraham and Ephron.
Sure.
We'll go with that's his name.
Yeah.
Kind of going back and forth on how to acquire this land.
It's an interesting back and forth they have.
Because on the one hand, Ephron's like, I'll just give it to you. And Abraham's like, no, I'll pay the full price.
Right.
Which on one hand, you could go, okay, this could just be the customary.
That's what I've heard. This is just the way you did the bargaining.
Right. But truthfully, in the end, it's very important to know that Abraham bought the land.
And paid, sounds like a good
price.
Yeah, to me, it sounds expensive, but I have absolutely no way of saying.
There is no way of knowing. We have nothing else to compare it to real estate-wise.
Right.
Good price, poor price, fair price.
Right.
But what is important is that donations were insecure in the law. You could always, if you had a piece of land donated or bartered in a way,
right,
that is not the landowner, the family members of the community could come back and challenge that.
Right.
And so if you want legal standing of, no, this land has passed from one family to the other,
you have to buy it.
You have to buy it, and you have to have good records proving it, because ultimately this land is going to belong to Abraham and his descendants forever.
Because who do you say? You told me who gets buried in there.
Abraham, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, Leah, and Sarah.
So they use it for a long time.
Yeah, this is in the family. And so you want to know, just like every family, that heritage, that legacy.
And they probably stopped because they were in Egypt after that.
Yes. Yeah, and Rachel gets buried along the way.
Right.
And so this is where, and then I wonder where Joseph's bones went then.
Oh, that's a good question. Would they have
when
come
Moses
here?
brought him out? Would Moses? I don't know.
No, because Moses didn't make it. I don't know. That's a really good question.
But
Where
Jacob said, "Take me."
So Jacob got put back here.
Yeah, Jacob got put back here. Jacob said, "Take me back," and Joseph wanted his bones taken out.
Yeah,
of Egypt. But so the whole idea is it's another line in that covenant.
Right.
You know, here God has said, Abraham, you'll get land. It will be for your descendants.
Right.
And so this is what chapter 23 is about. Here is the first chunk of land that will eventually become the promised land and belong to the Israelites.
And it's a cave to bury.
Right.
So it's a burial plot.
Right. But also in a way, then you've got a place to go back.
Oh, this is where we are.
This is where it started.
And I can say honestly, having loved ones buried, it is nice to have a place to go to say this is where they are. I can take my kids and we can go visit Grandma and Grandpa.
Right. And mourn and grieve.
And mourn and grieve and Shiloh.
And remember.
Yeah.
But so with that, that's all of Genesis 23. Which it's important, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on it.
Right.
Because now we're going to get to Genesis 24, which is actually the longest chapter in the entire book of Genesis.
It is a long chapter, and I didn't realize that until you said something. I'm like, oh, my word.
It is, but if you think about it, we are now shifting the focus from Abraham to Isaac and Rebekah.
Right.
So it's important to lay down who they are, what's been going on, how they're going to act. And what's fascinating to me is the author uses key words and phrases about Rebekah's leaving and how she leaves that call to mind how Abraham left in Genesis chapter 12.
So as God called Abraham out, Rebekah is being called out.
And she left without any questioning.
Which amazes me.
Just like Abraham did.
Just totally amazes me.
So as we're going through this, just keep in mind, this is our introduction to who Rebekah is.
Right. What kind of a woman is she?
Because truthfully, just like with Abraham, we don't know any of her backstory, really.
Right.
We don't know, was she wanting to get married? Were there other suitors in town?
Oh.
You know, we just all of a sudden, Rebekah comes on the scene just like Abraham did. So we start with how is she introduced? What does she do? What does she say?
Okay.
So as we start this, though, look at verse 1, Erica, of Genesis 24. Will you read that to us, please?
Abraham was now old and well advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed him in every way.
Which to me just takes us all the way back to Genesis chapter 12, verse 2, where God told Abraham, I will bless you.
And he did.
And he did. And he blessed him in every way, which again is just as Abraham's life is coming to an end, we are seeing, I guess I didn't realize that Abraham actually did see fulfillment of the covenant during his lifetime.
I kind of think he died without seeing anything.
Right.
But that's not true. He did get blessed. He had material wealth, and I would guess physical health.
Right?
I mean, based on how long he lived.
Right? He had a son. He's getting land. He's seeing all of this.
Right.
And he's seeing how he has blessed others.
Right.
And they've been blessed in association with him.
Right.
And so to me, that verse, it's a quick verse. It's easy to skip over in this chapter.
Right.
But just to me, we're starting to end Abraham's life. And here's the things to keep in mind as we're coming to the end.
The Lord did what he said.
Mm-hmm.
He blessed him.
Mm-hmm. But with that blessing, Abraham clearly needs to pass it on to his son.
Right.
And his son, therefore, needs
A wife.
a helpmate.
Right.
Someone to come along. Abraham's too old at this point to go home. So he calls in his servant, which many do think it's the servant from Genesis, I think, 15.
I think so.
Eliezer of Damascus.
That's how I've always heard it. It would make sense.
We don't know.
Right.
But
we'll use our sanctified imaginations,
Yes.
as my dad says.
But he brings this servant in and basically lays out to him, look, we need a wife for Isaac. Go back. Go get it. Go get her.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, it's kind of like, God will go with you. Just head on back. And so the servant goes back. But what I love is verses 12 through 14,
Yeah.
The servant prays. But how does he tell God, here's how I'll know who she is?
In please let the girl who does something, she waters his camels.
Yes. So it's not, I'll know it by what she says. I'll know it by how she looks. I'll know her by her actions.
What she does.
Which to me is huge because that speaks to her character.
Right.
Because Rebekah does come along and she says, I'll not only water you, but I'll water also
your camels.
your camels.
Which is a lot because camels can drink a lot.
I think I read like 10 gallons.
And he had at least more than one camel.
Right? I want to say there was 12. I'm not sure where I got that from. And I was looking and I can't remember.
But it had to be a good number of camels. And
this would be a big undertaking.
Yeah, it's not a little.
Right. It's not a quick, easy thing. This is something that is going to take perseverance and hard work, and you're going to probably be exhausted by the time you're done.
Because all he asks is, may I have a drink?
Mm-hmm.
And she's the one that says, yes, and not just you, I'll water your camels.
Mm-hmm. And so she goes down, she fills up and takes care of himself and the camels, and then he gives her some jewelry.
Which cracks me up because it says, like, isn't one of them a nose ring?
Yes.
Like, how do you, like,
that doesn't sound attractive.
No, actually, I know girls with nose rings that are very cute.
I know, but I picture, like, the big
yeah,
covers
I'm
your
just
mouth.
wondering, how do you go, like, here, go put this in your nose?
Right?
But
unless she already had the hole.
I'm sure she already had the hole, but it's just, to me, it's a funny picture.
Right.
But anyways.
But what I like is you get, in verse 15, you get a quick genealogy. So this whole time the author is weaving in and out of genealogies because, again, it's important where you came from, who your family is. And this one shows how she's related to Abraham, and she's not just one of the concubine's daughters. She is actually...
she's a blood relative.
a legitimate...
Okay.
And so what I love, though, Erica, verse 26 and 27, Rebekah says, and before that, Rebekah says, I'm the daughter of Bethuel. Here's my grandparents. Yes, we have room for you and your camels. And then look what this servant does in 26 and 27.
The man bowed down and worshiped the Lord, saying, Praise be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not abandoned his kindness and faithfulness to my master.
And now with that, you do know this because we talked about it earlier. But
I do,
what
yes.
words jumped out at you?
As you told me, I did not realize this. They were, kindness is chesed, and faithfulness is emet, which is another version of the word emunah.
So two of our favorite words.
Like, this is how this servant sees God in his dealings with Abraham. You are full of chesed, and you are full of this emunah, this faithfulness, steadfastness. And he's after watching Abraham's life with God,
Right.
this is how he describes God.
Right. So what to me was just fascinating is here we have Abraham and he's overseeing, we talked about this earlier, maybe 1,000 people.
Right.
How many of those 1,000 people now have a faith in God? And here's how they see. And again, if Genesis
Right.
is an introduction to God,
Right.
God is still, we're only halfway through the book.
Right.
So we're only halfway through God laying out who he is. Here's how Abraham's servants see God as a God with Hesed and Emunah, which if you haven't watched those YouTube videos,
you should.
you should, because we're going to keep coming back to every time those words pop up.
We're going to acknowledge it because they're important words.
Yes.
It just makes me wonder, like, how do people view God through my life? Would my kids say, oh, Lord, you have continued your faithfulness to my parents, your kindness
Right.
and goodness to my parents?
Your steadfast loyalty.
Right.
Yeah.
Do other people see that in my life? Because of the way I respond to God
Right.
and my obedience.
That's a really good point.
It's a painful point.
Yeah, it is. But it's a good reminder of just, okay, if you're not sure who God is,
Right.
if you're struggling with that right now, here's who Abraham's servant saw God. He's not even directly getting in line of the blessings
Right.
that Abraham did, but he still sees here's who God is.
Right.
And so we have now Rebekah obviously has some family members. Erica, would you
Yes.
like to read?
Verse 30.
Yes, please.
So Rebekah had a brother named Laban. He hurries out, and as soon as he sees the nose ring, the bracelets, and then heard what Rebekah had to tell, he went out.
So what's fascinating is we get introduced to Laban.
And the first thing he notices is the bling.
Yep.
Show me the money.
Yep. Which again, if we're introducing these characters,
So fits Laban.
we get Rebekah introduced as a hard worker.
Right.
A
good woman.
Yes. We get Laban into the money.
Eyes on the money, buddy.
Yep. Because truthfully, that's foreshadowing to what's going to happen later on when his nephew comes back.
Which is quite the comeuppance in
Right.
the story.
When Rebekah's son comes back years down the road.
Right. Uncle Laban hasn't changed.
No, he hasn't. But again, we're just laying these foundations of here's who these people are. Not only God, but also these key players.
Right.
And Laban, for the time of Genesis, is a key player in some of these stories.
Right.
So we just have that in verse 49. I'm going to jump there just really quick because we again bring out Rebekah's talking. I'm the daughter of Bethuel. I'm actually verse 47. My grandparents are Nahor and Milcah. It's actually the servant telling. And I put the nose ring on her and the bracelets on her wrist, and I bowed and worshipped the Lord. Verse 49. So tell me, will you or won't you show me?
Chesed and Emet.
So he's expecting the way God is, Abraham is. And Abraham will have those feelings, emotions.
And so
actions
Abraham's
back.
family will respond with that.
Yes.
God shows us chesed, so you will show chesed.
Yes. I just like that connection right there of this is how God is, this is how you are.
Right.
This is how your family is. But what's crazy then is, like we said, Rebekah just goes.
Which even my kids are like, Mom, she doesn't know anything about that.
Right?
And she goes. But I've got to think the servants, the wealth, there must have
primed
been
and ready.
Right, enough to prove, yes, I really do come from Abraham.
But also, just like Abraham just got up and left with God in Genesis 12,
Yeah, she just
she does it too.
Yeah.
That speaks to her character. That speaks to, I don't know if it's a faith in God. I don't know what it is,
Right.
but she's willing to go.
Oh,
I
as
know.
a mother, like, oh.
But so we've had basically, she's gonna leave. They're gonna travel, and we basically get 60-ish verses in, telling of how it all went down, and then she gets to Isaac,
And it's so, okay. It is such, this was written by a man. And I'm very thankful for men, but like as a woman, like I would like a little more.
Right. We get
like,
Isaac brought Rebekah into his tent and she became his wife.
Right. Like were they I want them to be happy. Was he I mean obviously she's beautiful. Was he good looking?
Right.
You know, was it like Beauty and the Beast where she had to learn to love him?
Right.
Or you know, like what happened when she saw him, when he saw her? Tell me the details.
Right. There are no details.
Because they're not important. I know.
Ultimately, what is important is who she is, where she comes from.
Her character and her family.
Mm-hmm.
And she's proven her character and her family is right.
Right.
They're Abraham's family. But it's, as a woman, I would like a little more detail.
You can get to heaven someday and ask.
I know.
Can I watch the DVD,
I would
please?
just like to see that scene.
But so now we have Isaac and Rebekah. They are married. And so as this story obviously is going to transition, Abraham's going to die.
Which I feel like we need a funeral or something. I felt the same way with Moses.
Right?
I
felt it more with Moses.
I felt it more with Moses, but you still feel like we've been through so much with this man. I mean, I think you said it earlier,
He's
Ronnie.
175 when he dies.
So you said it's been 100 years.
Yes.
That we have journeyed with him and we have seen ups and downs and highs and lows. And it's like, oh, he dies.
Right. There's a lot there. But what I love is just verse 8. He died at a ripe old age, having lived a long and satisfying life. Because what's fascinating is Isaac he dies at a ripe old age with a long and satisfying life.
Isaac gets that?
Isaac gets that too.
Jacob doesn't get that.
Jacob does not.
No, he dies actually young compared to.
And Jacob doesn't get a long and satisfying life, or however your translation words it.
Oh.
Abraham and Isaac get that. Jacob doesn't, but it fits because Jacob's life
is hard.
It's hard because of choices he makes.
Yes.
You know, but we're coming to the end. Abraham has died. That means the covenant is fulfilled with Abraham, sealed. It cannot be broken.
Right.
God has now promised Abraham, because of you, your descendants will get everything. Right. And so we get to now watch as all those descendants walk out now. They're in covenant forever, eternally with God.
You mean the one descendant that
the one
he has?
Right.
Yet he's got just one.
Well, what's fascinating, though, he actually doesn't have just one son.
No, he doesn't. And I didn't realize this, I think, till I was in college.
Right. We obviously know he has Ishmael.
Right.
Because we talked about that last week. Ishmael does come back to bury Abraham.
Which is sweet. To me, that means
there was a connection.
There was a connection there. Either he forgave, or
right.
I don't know if when Sarah died, he was able to reconnect.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But apparently he was able to come back.
Because Abraham does have quite a bit of time.
Yes, after.
He would have been 137 when Sarah died. So he has from 137 to 175.
And he marries again.
Or commentators aren't sure if he married again or he actually had been married previous.
Which makes sense.
With Sarah alive.
Yeah.
But Abraham, doesn't matter when he married, he does have other sons.
Right.
But
I can hear your gasp, listener.
I know. What's fascinating, though, is verse 5. Here verses 1 through 4 list Abraham's other sons. And notice we do get the Midianites from Abraham.
Really?
Midian's sons, yes.
Oh.
But verse 5, I actually think should start with a big but.
Right. Seriously. But.
Abraham gave everything he owned to his son Isaac.
Because at the very least, even if he had other wives, Sarah was his main wife.
Right. And
Isaac is the son of the promise.
Yes. So everything, which you kind of wonder, would that cause issues?
Well,
everything he had goes to Isaac. Was Isaac older? Was Isaac younger? Was Isaac in the middle of this? We don't know. Those aren't the important details.
Right.
Even the fact that Abraham had another wife with sons is not an important detail, other than it comes into God told Abraham, your descendants will be as numerous as the stars in the sky and countless as the sands on the seashore. So we do get into then Ishmael's descendants.
Right.
And we see how Ishmael becomes 12 tribes.
Right.
So in that way, we have to finish Abraham's life with the genealogy of saying, here's where Abraham's family is going.
He has a lot of descendants.
Yes. Which is a fulfillment of God's promise to him.
Right.
So we start Abraham in Genesis 11, introducing him.
12.
Well, he's actually introduced in 11
Oh, okay.
in a genealogy.
Oh, right.
You know, so you start, our first introduction to Abraham is a genealogy. We end Abraham with a genealogy because, again, we've been following that seed as it's been coming through from Adam and Eve.
Right.
And you go, you know what? By keeping it in a genealogy, you're reminded he's a link in a chain.
Right.
This story is not just about Abraham.
Yep.
This story is so much bigger than Abraham,
Yeah.
and we're going to watch how God interacts now with his family, because Genesis is all about foundations,
Right.
Abraham's faith,
Right.
and now we're moving to Abraham's family and their faith.
Right.
And so as we set that up, that's where we're coming back next week of what happens now with Isaac and Rebekah and their family, and where does it go from there?
Right. Quite the family.
Yes. So this is kind of, to me, more of that transition.
Right.
Laying some foundations, just keeping our storyline going. There's not big takeaways, but I think I like your takeaway in the middle of it of how would people describe God based on my faith and my interactions with him.
Right.
Kind of like Abraham's servant.
Right.
So this is the Context and Color of the Bible podcast. As always, we are actually having a lot of fun with Genesis.
Yeah, it's been really, really good. I like the
so
way
much bigger than I ever realized.
Yeah.
But stay with us. We're coming back next week. We'll continue on with the story. But for now, if you're enjoying it, it would be great if you could rate or review. That helps.
Share, subscribe.
Yeah, all of that. If you rate and review, though, it helps push us up in iTunes.
Right.
Just to show other people that, hey, there's this podcast out there.
Right.
And if you share it with others, that helps spread the word.
Right.
Because we've had some fun. Esther, Jonah, Ruth. Those have been
Right.
some really fun podcasts
Right.
and studies that we've done.
They're easy to jump in and jump out of because
Yes.
they're shorter. So,
So
Yeah.
thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.
bye-bye.